What's up, y'all? It's Anthony James with the Grindhouse Podcast. Got a special guest to me. We just with our hometown heroes segment that we like to do, and we've been in St. Louis for a little bit, so we're gonna journey up to Flint, man. We're gonna get up to Flint, Michigan. We're gonna talk about some past stuff, some past glory, current thing that we're working with. I got my guy. He is the head. I'm gonna start with there. Head track coach at Madison Central High School, and where's it located? Is it in
Madison, Mississippi.
it's just in Madison, Mississippi. I want to make sure I don't say the wrong one, don't butcher the wrong city. Former Central Michigan, and he did it the hard way. To walk on and get the start of Central Michigan starting cornerback. When I knew him, he was a big nine running back, and we gonna go into all that. See, I got all your accolades. You don't even know it, bro. I'm there. I'm ready. We got my boy Terrence Robinson. T. Rob, what's up, bro?
What's up, man? I'm happy to be here, man. It's a blessing, man. I'm excited.
I appreciate it, man. Let's start back. Let's go all back, right, man. Let's go back. Longfellow.
Yes, sir.
I want to, and the reason I bring that up is I me and the boys, we always talk about the amount of talent that's in Flint and guys who don't get a chance to see it through. And I know when it comes to coaching, I know you get a chance to kind of talk to your guys and like, if you knew where I come from, y'all just don't understand. So tell me just in the beginning, from there on, where did the passion come from to compete?
Oh man, it was back to playing FA, Flint affiliation. That's okay. What all started at, man, and that having that avenue to compete on the stage we were on every weekend, and going to nationals down in Florida and everything like that. I think that's where the competition and competing came from. Then it stems back from my mom. If what of her, I wouldn't be where I am now. And so she instilled that drive in me because coming from a single parent home, she made sure I had what it took to survive. And I seen her cutting the grass and coming in the house to mop the floors, doing everything. And so it's like, man, I had nothing but greatness to look up to. Right. So that's what it all started from.
Yeah, and that could sometimes become a crutch to some kids. We're gonna call a spade, where it's exactly like, right. They say, I only got my mom, so I gotta, it's the only way I can do it. And it's usually one or two ways. I'm either gonna use that as motivation, or I'm gonna use that as a means to just lay back and not work as hard. So obviously to try to compete, and we both know, coming from Flint, coming from where we were, that, and for us to get on the field, now we may have small teams. Like if you look at what the teams are now, when we go to high schools and stuff like that, middle school, what we had were small in numbers compared to. But when I say we had guys all the time when it came to competing. So what was it that you knew that you had to do in order to just get on the field? Because let's be honest, we know you ain't 6'1". Right. It is what it is. For you to be on the field, for you, what did you feel like you had to do at an early age in order to get there and show that you can play?
I think with my height, I told them it had to be the intangibles.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have. Might not be the fastest, but if you could do technique, if you're technique sound, that stood out more than anything. I think my IQ of knowing, my football IQ, my basketball IQ, that helped me out so much. I wasn't even on basketball court. I wasn't a scorer, but I would lock down your top player every game. Who they talk about? Okay, I'm going after them. That's my assignment. So it might not be the score. It might not be the best. So, just do my job and do my role to the fullest. I think, like I said, it goes back to being technique sound, having that foundation and knowing and understanding your abilities and what you can do and what you can and can't do.
Right. And so obviously, like I said, we got to middle school. We was killing them in middle school, man.
Yes,
when I say, and y'all don't know this, me and T. Rob, I just had a conversation. The rest of y'all don't know. When I say the amount of talent that we had on the field of guys, I'm not gonna blame coaching, but I'm gonna blame what we didn't know compared to what we know now, compared to then, where if we had the amount of people who can be trainers or guys who can help us with learning how to work, the amount of guys who probably could have been high level D1 guys, just on our middle school team.
Yes.
Like it's crazy to kind of think of just like the amount of guys we had, just kind of. So talk about just the talent that you saw early on. Not we're gonna get to high school and stuff later, but tell me about the early on talent that you saw in Flint.
Oh, we were loaded. We were loaded at Longfellow. Man, it was, from Matt Trannon to Kiki Griggs. We was from top to bottom on a football field, on a basketball court, wherever you take it, we had it that year, especially our 8th grade year. We had it. But it was the ones that when we were 7th graders that had it before us, that showed us the way to go. And that's when we took it on our 8th grade year, man. It was I still got my yearbook in there somewhere. I got to at least go pull it back out, man, because we had some classic years, man, and it was a blessing. Like when you look back upon that, look back at that, man, it's like we had some talent.
Yeah,
we had some talent, man, and it was, we all go our separate ways on the high school level, but that middle school class, man, from top to bottom.
It was there, man. It was there, dog. Like, yes. and I talk about, me and my boys, we talk about all the time about, the amount of, how we always talk about how we ran the city, like the city. Yeah. And obviously, because, I went to Northern. So, that's how we always talked about that during that time frame of if when it was boys, basketball, football, we was going to run the city, from 9th grade on. Mm-hmm. You took a different direction. So and I'm gonna guess that you probably initially didn't want to take that direction, or I'm guessing. So you're gonna tell me about what how it felt to be like, what, I'm here at Carmen Ainsworth. This is where I'm playing, this is where I'm supposed to be. So tell me about that, because obviously everybody else was going where I was at.
It was crazy, man. And the sad part about I live right around the corner from Northern. Mm-hmm. I live right around the corner on Wabash from Northern, man. So it was, it had all my family members went to Carmen. Mm-hmm. My older cousins went there, man. And you're around that, like, man, you need to come over here. You need to come over, so pulling at you left and right. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up making that move, man. Still, back then you had to cut them corners to make it happen.
Yeah.
We did that. We did that, man. And but then you still got your boys from Northern, man. You still got your boys from Spencer, everywhere. And it was still, even though you wasn't one of those city schools, that rivalry was strong, man. Yeah. That rivalry was strong. It's not I wish it could be the same, but that was one of the days.
Because you wanted to play them games. When y'all had a city school, when y'all ready, you like, all right, listen, we got to show them that we out here hooping too. Yes. We can play ball out here too,
All them suburb kids, man, come on. They're Flint, them town school kids. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Cause listen, ain't nothing like on the hoop court. Like I said, I say some of them years where y'all made it to regionals and things like that. But it just size wise, it just was what it was when you're in the suburbs. Y'all just didn't have that high. That here's that 6'8" guy who just jumping out the gym. I mean, we all didn't have that, honestly. Now that looking back, you realize we didn't have that. We just had a whole bunch of guys who gonna just put their nose in your chest every game.
Blue collar city, man. It was just blue collar, just hands down. That's what we work. We go scrap and claw for whatever we got to get, and so we didn't allow anything of that to come in our path. We just wanted to go after it. We had our minds on that. Hey, this is what we doing. Let's go.
So the one regret that I kind of have, and I wish that, kind of how the Valley is now compared to what it used to be. Obviously I love playing Saginaw and love playing the Bay Cities and in the Midlands and all that stuff. Back when my last few years, we were doing some winning during that time. Mm-hmm. Playing in the Big Nine and playing against guys that you're probably going to see a lot and things like that. So tell me if you could explain to people what Big Nine football was to you back then. Give me because it wasn't no easy wins really.
No.
I mean, Source Creek probably, and there was only one.
Yeah, and you knew Beecher was going to beat Beecher, but in football, it was going to be they going to come after you.
Yeah,
we had to get up out of there.
You better get on the bus. Leave your pads on. We got to go.
Everyone keep your head down. That's what they always told you. After get on that bus and go. Yeah. But you look at that Big Nine conference, man, from the Grand Blanks to the the Kersleys. That was those were the games where those guys going to the next level.
Yeah,
and that's your comparison. You look at how the SEC is now on the college level. That's how it was on the high school level for us up there. And it was every single week, man. You had to go in ready to roll because you can get embarrassed. They're gonna try to knock your socks off quickly.
Yeah,
those were the amazing times, man.
So tell me give me some of the key guys, because obviously, like I said, me being in the Flint schools, I didn't know much about what was going on the outside. So give me some of the key figures, key coaches, guys who helped shape you in your mindset as a player?
I think the first one was, Dave Larkin was the head coach there until my senior year. And that's when he had my cousin and Tony. He was there. Wesley ran that veer option, and that was changing the game right there. I mean, that always hurt them when they got to the playoffs because now you got to throw it. You ain't ready for throwing. You know what I mean? Because you always ran the ball and run all over everybody. Then you look at the was it Reggie Bent back in the day from Grand Blanc?
Yeah.
Man, you ain't seen no bad running back like that.
Nah. We might have had a couple dudes who were probably some dudes, when we go run up against Saginaw and stuff like that. But somebody who the production that he put in week out.
Yep.
Yeah.
You had Tank Pitt, man. Tank was the man. Back then. They all led the way for us. So we had it was amazing players, man. You look at like Davison, was always loaded. They coming in 2 or 3 buses deep,
It's still that way.
Right? So, you had to be ready. Like I said, it was tough, hard-nosed football every Friday night, from tailgating to everything, man. Those were the times.
Yeah. Now, obviously, like I said, you got we got the players. So when you're making a decision right now because I'm sure you had probably some smaller schools where you're like, I could have went and played football and things like that. What was the decision to say, hey, I'm going to go to CMU and I'm going to do it the hard? I always tell people doing it the hard way, which is never a bad thing to say doing it the hard way because the hard way, it shapes you. So what was the decision for you to say, I'm going to go to Central Michigan University and I'm going to walk on?
Hi, I'm Shane with Restore Hyper Wellness right here in Murphy, Texas. I'm proud to say we're partners with Grindhouse Sports Training just next door in Wiley. Now, Coach Washington over at Grindhouse Sports Training has done a phenomenal job at not just building out a business in the community, being a pillar in the community, but also being an inspiration to the young, talented kids that he trains each and every day. Now, last year, Coach Washington started a podcast, a Grindhouse podcast. The links are below. I encourage each and every one of you to go check this out. Listen to it, like it, enjoy it. Coach Washington will walk you through his personal experiences, what motivates him, what made him what he is today, and why he's so effective at being a phenomenal leader to these young, talented individuals. Check out the podcast. We'll see you soon.
I think for me, the major they had up there and the proximity of it from home, that had a lot to do with it. And then to go there to walk on, man, knowing I had a amazing, what hurt me was my senior year when I got hurt. But my junior year was my top year. Rushford had the rushing record, one single game rushing record, all that stuff my junior year. My senior year got hurt, so that hurt me out with going to other places. But that decision was to just go for it, man. You're built for this. You're built for this. And so I went up there, walked on, did whatever I had to do. They moved my position as soon as I got up there. Because back then you had freshman camp. You had the freshmen going earlier. And then they had a lot of corners that got hurt off of from spring ball. So they moved me over to corner. I mean, look, I played corner both in high school, but, running back was my spot. But, then my cousin played at Western. So I knew about corner, knew, the ins and outs of it. So I went up there, put my head down and grind, man. Like I said, that blue collar mentality that we're taught early on and from Flint, take and run with it. And so I did that, and I was blessed. I was truly blessed. I had an amazing experience up there. Won a few championships up there. Man, made the coaches and the people I've networked with still to this day up there. The Stan Shingles of the world, the others that from that university. And so. And that's that. If it wasn't for that university, I wouldn't be where I am today. Exactly. If I would have took that other route of going to some smaller schools, would I be in the position I am today?
It's hard to tell, kid. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we talk about kids and recruiting and stuff like that. I'm going to keep going with the Central Michigan because you got to a point where you're on the field. And it's not just, a walk, because a lot of walk-ons don't see the field and see significant time or get some starts and things like that. So talk about that part of the journey where you were not only a walk-on as an athlete, but you are now I want to say thrust into a position because you still earned it. You still, but you're in a position where I got to play, and I got to play well in order to help us win. So talk about that a little bit.
I always stayed ready, mentally. Maybe you couldn't be on the field, or you taking notes, you watching film, you do more than you do when you're in high school, but I stayed ready mentally, man. I kept my game sharp when nobody was around. So when that time presented itself, I'm prepared for it. I'm ready. I'm nervous as I know what on the inside, but in my mind, I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I'm blessed for this opportunity, so we're gonna take hold of it. So I think that was for me. I stayed ready mentally and physically, and sharpening my game. Iron sharpens iron. So I surrounded myself with others, the starters. My cousin. I picked his brain so much more. So him on a high level of it. Playing the position. So that's probably the biggest thing that got me ready for those opportunities.
Yeah. And as far as like guys at Central Michigan that you played with, let everybody know a little bit of the talent that CMU had during that time, man. Because I know because I was there with you.
Yes, sir.
So let them know what type of talent that was there on that field at the time. People don't really know about MAC football. They see it on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Like, why the hell am I watching football? I'm gonna watch it because it's football. But what is this? So tell them about playing at CMU and tell them about the talent that's in the MAC.
Man, we had great talent. Number one, you playing against your non-conference. You want to play against the Michigans. We played against Kentucky, Penn State, Michigan State, Clemson. You playing against those top echelon schools in non-conference games. So you're getting that exposure. But you're looking at, James King, Anthony Tyus. You're looking at Ike Brown, my one of my best friends right now, Red Keefe. Both of those amazing players. Ike is down at LSU right now, assistant strength coach. Jake Flint. He walked on up there at Central Michigan with me. He's the head strength coach at LSU right now. But, let alone with Brian Kelly, who was my coach at Central Michigan, being the head coach at LSU now. So then you surround yourself with those type of people. Man, we had some players in my first year coaching. I had Antonio Brown was there. He came over as a walk-on, taking care of him, getting him ready, prepared on the mental level for the game. So, I surrounded myself with, like I said, Adam Keefe, Joe Staley was came in the same year I did. Dan Lefevre, man, that list can go on and on. The guys that made it to the league, but from there. So that means a historic school when it comes to football.
Yeah. I was telling, we had a running back down here. And I was telling somebody, go look up Jerry Seymour highlights. And from when he was there at CMU. And I'm like, you ain't never seen a little dude who runs so hard, man.
Yes. I thought he had a third leg. He had put that hand down, and man, he was special.
Yes, yeah. Like I said, I feel like there was so much of that talent that didn't get a chance to be seen for the next level. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that went on at CMU. We won't talk about that during this at the end of the CMU with some of them guys. So we won't talk about that. But a lot of stuff where those guys, there was just a lot of talent who could have seen the next level. Just for whatever reason, things happen and stuff like that. So. So when you leaving school, and let's be honest, because when your last game is, essentially. Right. You know it. You can feel like, all right, football getting ready to end. What is my plan? What's the plan? What's the plan for you at this point?
Man, honestly, my plan was to go be to be a sports broadcaster. That's exactly what it was. One of my coaches, Ernest Jones, he said, man, you need to go into coaching. And then that year, Brian Kelly left right before our bowl game. He left to go to Cincinnati. In comes Butch Jones, who was a running back coach one of my first couple years at Central. So I knew him, great relationship with him. And then he hired a defense coordinator, Tim Banks, who's by far my top mentor right now to this day. Tim, he gave me my first opportunity to be on his staff, there at Central Michigan. And he instilled in me, and the great part about it was around the same height. He played corner at Central from Detroit, played corner there, so he was like, that was like a great father figure for me because he taught me so much, as a coach and just not as a coach, but as a father figure in coaching the game of football. And so I learned so much from him. And it was honestly, it was easy for me to gain a respect because I already had respect as my teammates. So going to that year of coaching, man, it was easy for them to respect me and to listen to me and understand what I'm saying. So I was in that comfort zone. That first year, man, I was just comfortable, because I've been there. Everybody know me around here. So, one of my close friends, Daryl Franklin, who's with the, assistant head coach at the Green Bay Packers right now. And so when you see those type of guys excel and move on, then you look at, it's not even talking about one of our GAs was Robert Saleh, who's a head coach. You look at Matt LaFleur. He was one of our GAs. He head coach of Green Bay now, one of our GAs at Central Michigan. So that, the list goes on and on, but those people instilled so much in me that got me to stay and to get into coaching in the first place, but to stay in it as well.
Yeah. So obviously we get into coaching. You've someone said, hey, you need to do this, but you had to listen. That's because again, we still got our own dream.
Mm-hmm.
What was your why though? As to like, you know what, I am going to get into coaching and not because again, if you got a dream to be a broadcast, you're like, you know what? No, I hear you, coach, but what was your reason why that you chose to do it?
I think my mom was one of them. You know, was like, what's next? You know what I mean? Do you want, you ain't got no leads right now. This was like, you better do something, you're graduating, you better do something. And so I think that was the biggest thing is, all right, stay into it. Stay into it. This might be that what you need. So then, like I said, it was like second nature for me. From a player transitioning right into a coach for me there. That's
Okay, so we leave Central. Where we go next? Because I know now we're on a coaching journey now.
Yes, sir. Now the journey begins.
Now we're on the journey now. Yeah. So where we go after Central, man?
Man, like I said, like I just stated, man, it was so easy and comfortable for me. I love to be uncomfortable. So I followed after a bowl game, I got a job offer coming to Mississippi to Alcorn State University.
Okay.
Well, one of my coach, Ernest Jones, who was one of my position coaches at Central while I was playing, got the head coaching job down here at Mississippi. He said, man, why don't you come down here be a coach for me, coach my staff. So I said, whatever fit in my car, I'm packing it up. My mom and my family came and got the rest put in storage. After the bowl game, after the Motor City Bowl, we won. I jumped in my car and drove all the way to Mississippi. Then I got here to Mississippi. I was at Alcorn State University coaching for 4 years. I'm in the coaching world now. I'm in it. I'm
about to have you pause because I want people to really, I want to talk about HBCU coaching because it's different than coaching. So give people a little bit of insight as to coaching at the HBCU compared to coaching FCS or how they would coach at a PWI. So,
oh man, well, I could begin by since we get down there, the locker room the kids was changing clothes out of their cars. We're painting the practice fields. The coaches are painting the factory 90, 100-degree weather. We painting the practice fields. Kids we starting training camp, not having nothing to put on. Hey, we telling them to wear a white t-shirt and some black shorts. So you really building it from the ground up. You're doing it, it paved the way for you. It made you appreciate coming from Central Michigan.
So you had everything. You didn't realize you had everything.
But now, man, you doing it all. All. Yeah, man, back then, you putting VHS tapes for highlight tapes. That's how you
learn how to do the two.
Yep. So, man, you doing all that. And so, man, it was a true grind. It was a true test. Like, this is what you want, But I think that HBCU life, man, it has taken so many steps forward since then. But man, back then, man, it was a true grind. My car got broken into my second day on campus down there. They didn't know you. I mean, you were outside. You come from Michigan.
You got these Michigan plates, so
So I mean, my car broke into. Like, we painting the fields. Like, man, I ain't used to doing none of this.
Yeah.
It's in high school. You know what I mean? So I think that was a true grind for me.
Yeah. So obviously, like I said, going through the HBCU as a parent, going into a parent's home though. As an HBCU coach, how hard compared to now? Because now it seems that with the onset of a lot of NFL players coming in and coaching inside of HBCUs and things like that, the visual is back to where it was kind of in the 60s and 70s and things like that for HBCU coaching. But during that time frame when you were coaching, how hard was it for you to go into a parent's home and say, "Hey, trust me with your son"?
It was very hard because down here in Mississippi, where you're saturated by a lot of junior colleges, it will go to a junior college over you.
Yeah, and honestly, the junior college probably had better facilities, especially down there between Mississippi and the Jayhawk Conference. Those you go play JUCO in any of those areas, you're gonna have better facilities than you're gonna have at all of the HBCUs.
Yes, sir. You had that from their facilities to if you come to the JUCO, we can get you 2 years here. We can get you onto the D1 school. So we lost kids a lot to junior colleges down here because, like I said, you look at the facilities we had and that opportunity that these JUCOs are selling them on. Well, they sell them because, hey, last chance you know what I mean? Everybody's seen that back in the day, and they see all these kids pipeline into Alabama, to all these other D1 schools, and so that was tough for us, man. But yeah, it was a struggle trying to get kids.
Yeah, and I can only imagine. So 4 years, Alcorn State. What was the next step?
flew up my head coach, Ernest Collins at that time, got the head job at his alma mater, University of Northern Colorado. So he brought some of the staff. Brought some of the staff down.
I'm about to stop you because that is a coach. Listen, you've been at Central Michigan. And you are well and good. You've been at CMU. We know what CMU looks like compared to growing up in Flint. So you grew up in Flint. We know what it looked like there. You go to CMU, different. You get a whole other culture shock going to the middle of nowhere, Mississippi, and Alcorn State. No disrespect to Alcorn State, but it's 5 back roads to get back there. But now you're going to suburban Greenlee, Colorado.
Yes.
And they don't win up there. So it's hard. What you would think, with Colorado has decent football, so you would think that you should be able to recruit a little bit better with how they do. I don't know that you were there, so talk to me about Northern Colorado, man.
it was a step up from where I just came from, the Alcorn, but you're the lower echelon of that conference, big time. The great thing about it is Northern Colorado. That's where the Denver Broncos used to have their training camp there. So we had 8 practice fields. 2 of them were turf and 6 grass practice fields. You had all those things, those bells and whistles, but you're still the lower echelon of that Big Sky Conference. The recruiting of it and where we lived and where Greeley is. Every other Saturday they burn the blood from the cows. So man, when I say don't bring recruit, you got to know when to bring recruits on campus. You got
to know, and you got to know which recruits can handle that. Believe me, I just dealt with being in Cheney, Washington, so it is anywhere in the Big Sky. Unless you at the Montana schools, it's gonna be hard to get players, man.
Yeah, and then I was blessed. I hit the ground running. Those coaches I recruited Mississippi, New Orleans, Louisiana, the Midwest. I brought 4 kids from Carmen Ainsworth out there. Signed 4 kids from Carmen Ainsworth, 1 from Northern from out there. So I brought kids out there from, so I gave them that experience. That was probably one of the biggest blessings for me is seeing recruiting kids from those locations and them trusting me. So now it's easier for me to recruit a kid and his parents to trust me than it was when I was at Alcorn. And so now that parent is trusting their child to come way out there to Colorado. So it worked out. It had some good and some bad at it, but it was a blessing because like I said, I had one of my best moments was a kid from New Orleans. He graduated, and his thing was, Coach, if it wasn't for you offering me this scholarship, I'd be dead or in jail. First one from his family to, from New Orleans to first one from his family to graduate, to go to school, to go to college and to graduate. But if that probably was my fondest moment from coaching was this kid to tell me, if it wasn't for you offering me that scholarship, I'll be in dead or in jail.
Yeah.
But I'll forever be indebted to me, man.
And that it hits you in certain ways where you don't want it to because you're like, dog, I know you could have did more, but a lot of these kids don't have the one thing they don't have is hope. And that's when you're in the inner city, that's the one thing that's always missing is hope. And I don't think people really understand it unless they grow up in places that we grew up at and stuff like that is that the people around you, for lack of a better word, whether it's family, and it is what it is, whether it's family, whether it's church members, whether they don't always give you hope that you can go do more. They just tell you that, while you're here, do the best as you can while you're here.
Right.
And I think that's the one thing that a good coach is, and I'm gonna get to this right here for you, that, that's what you're giving kids, man. You're giving them hope to go do something bigger than themselves. So you leave Northern Colorado, and we go back to high school, right?
We can move back to Mississippi.
So what was why go back to Mississippi? What was the reason?
My wife is from here. My wife is family from here. So I met her when I coached at Alcorn State. Met my wife here. We had our first son in Colorado.
Okay.
We went back here after we got let go from up there, and then luckily it's all about recruiting. It's all about network. The connections we make. Luckily, one of the coaches that I recruited kids from when I was out there, he remembered me at Madison Central, and so I came in and he saw me. He said, "Man, I need you on my staff. You living here now?" So yeah, I'm here. Boom. I got on his staff here at Madison. I was my first year coaching back in high school level, and I was shocked because of the difference of high school level here than it was up north that we're used to. You know,
So
you got
explain it to people. Let them know what the difference is. Because again, people think about Mississippi. They're not thinking about high school football in Mississippi. Those are two different things. Living there and playing sports there are two different things. So
two different
let
things.
let them know what that is, man.
Man, you looking at, you know, you getting police escort to games. I'm like, man, we don't have this up north. We don't have
Yeah.
this. When you see police at a football game, something doesn't happen.
It's
You
gonna
know,
happen.
you know, you got, man, 100 and some kids on a team. You
Mhm.
got a football block. You know, you got weightlifting block. You all year round. And
Yeah.
one big difference that I tell coaches all the time here is you got spring football in the South. You don't
Yeah.
have that in Michigan.
No, because we don't you don't know when the spring gonna start.
Exactly.
And then everybody playing, and you don't realize how small our teams are until, a Class A team up there may only be 40, unless you're at Grand Blanc, it may only be 40 kids compared
Right.
to, down in Mississippi, Texas, it's 70 kids on your team.
Yes.
You don't realize, I mean, and obviously this is where somebody asked me last week, what's the difference between playing in Michigan and playing in the South, playing in Texas? I'm like, it's linemen. Lineman talent is the only thing. Skill guys, you're gonna find skill guys wherever you go.
Yes.
Yep. I can go find a skill. I can go somewhere in Minnesota right now, find two skill guys like that. But lineman talent, that's in the South.
Yes. It's totally different. And you know, people they don't understand that, but man, they don't see it's a huge difference. You know, we had periods up there. They got blocks down there. Like, we got a block schedule. What is that? You know, have to understand that. You know, they coming down for football block. They coming down they coming to get locker rooms, you know, everything, the whole nine. That was huge, you know, a difference for me coming down here. And the speed, you know, the speed of the game. You know, it's more of a ran like a college level, you know, especially at Madison, where our budget is amazing. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie to you, it's amazing. You know, you're looking at our budget compared to some of the HBCU budgets, you know. So, facilities and everything like that, man, it was hands down, you know, especially where I'm at now, tailgating inside the stadium. You know what I mean? Sold out before the game even start, you know, sold out in the summer. So those type of differences are huge and plays a big part of high school football.
Yeah. And especially, so let me ask you a couple more questions going back to, especially with Madison and things like that, where talk about, and this is more so for you personally, because again, you've been in college and things like that. So what is the major difference between coaching high school kids and coaching college kids, though? Because that had to be a change for you, you know, your philosophy a little bit as well.
A little bit.
Because you got some kids who, you know, they not gonna play. Yeah, but you gotta you still gotta coach them up. You still gotta do your part too. So tell me about that philosophy.
You know, that biggest thing for me was, and all my kids now will tell you, I'm going to be me. I'm going to coach you how I would on college level. I'm hands on. We getting after the knowledge of the game, everything. I'm going to teach you the ins and outs because I want to see you make it. But like I said, those kids that's not going to make it, you still got to treat them great because they're going to there's some program kids. You need them.
Yeah.
When the fundraiser time or anything like that, you need
they're going to do something later on. They're going to remember their time playing.
Yes. And so they might not ever get in, but they're going to remember that experience, who I got coached by. You know, for me, I was always hands-on. I'm always hard-nosed. I'm my kid. I tell them all the time, even before we even start spring practice, I'm going to tell them, hey, you will not have another coach that's harder on you than me. That's just who I am. I'm old school hard-nosed. That's how I was taught. And I've seen the success. But if you trust me and trust the process that I'm going to teach you, I can get you to the next level.
Yeah.
And I take hold of that. That's a promise I'm making. If you got the abilities, you got the genetics to make it to the next level, I'll get you there.
Yeah. And we're gonna say this. You probably got some guys who are super talented, D1 athletes, but in the NIL era and the stuff that's going on right now, do you find it hard to put that proverbial battery in their back to you need to work that the work is going to get you paid, or because you got some guys who are just talented, all they thinking about is just the dollar signs and the biggest school and things like that. How do you manage that type of coaching with those guys compared to guys who ain't gonna see the field, but they're gonna run through a wall for you?
I got to put more on those. You know, I have a separate meeting with them. I got to put more on them to get them prepared for it mentally and physically. You know, I think that's one thing now. This is my 4th year back at Madison. After going to another school and winning state championship there, we make sure we are preparing these kids how to interview well. You know, how to do interviews, how to speak. etiquette, everything like that, because that's needed, because now they want to see that. That's going to set you apart from somebody else.
Yeah.
Like I always tell mine is, don't try to be the best in Mississippi. You compete against everybody all throughout the country, not just in the United States, but the whole country now. So you got to excel that much more to set yourself apart. Because like I said, nowadays with NIL, as a high school kid, there's not going to be a lot of offers out there for you. No. With the transfer portal as well.
Yeah, not committable offers. There's not committable offers.
Exactly right. Exactly right. It's a lot of offers, but are they real committable? And I tell you, you got to know the difference between them two.
Yeah,
you have to know the difference, because they're going to put out there.
And that's where I think where parents have to educate themselves.
Yes.
But they don't understand. They just see. Believe me, I've been all around the country.
Yeah.
And seen it and know exactly. Out of all those 25 offers my son had, 6 of them were real. I really want you offers. You know what I mean? And so seeing that and seeing the difference in that and seeing where those coaches go after an injury or stuff like that, stuff happens. You know what I mean? As a mentor though, for these kids, because again, we're talking about this point of NIL and stuff like that. But once they leave and they graduate, because you're still a mentor, because again, you talked about your mentor earlier that is still in your life and things like that. How do you still keep that relationship with your kids once they go off to school?
I have a whole text message chat group with all my former players that's on the next level. So I stay in contact with them constantly. Send me pictures, send me video from practice. I stay in contact with them all the time, because I know a couple of them didn't have a father figure at all. I was their father figure. My wife and I were there for them whenever they needed us, and still are. So I make sure I stay in contact with them, their coaches. Their coaches know if they got any issues, you let me know. Don't call them mama, call me. I'll take care of it. And so I make sure I stay in contact with them. I think with my connections and people that I know as well, they can call me at any moment. But I make sure, man, as a mentor, you got to be in these kids' lives. You're all they have. Football is all of them. If it wasn't football, some of them wouldn't be in college. Yeah. I got one right now that's getting ready to go off to Arkansas State that played for me. His 3-year starter for me. I'm in his life more than anything. His mom, call me and call my wife if anything happens. And he going to call me no matter what anyway.
Right.
Let's get ready for prom last week. He asked for a suit and for a shirt and tie. Boom, I got you. Yeah. That's what a real coach, that's having a real relationship with a kid on and off the field.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing that I do, man, and that's why being from Flint is such a blessing, because I can tell them what we came from. I can tell them about the water crisis we had, what the color of our water was.
Yeah.
We still had to drink, you know what I mean? So I let them know those stories. I tell them, I'm an open book. I tell my kids all about me, all about my life, the struggles I went through. And that helps them out. So they won't make the same mistakes I made, and they can learn from mine.
Right. Like I said, I got a few more minutes here, because we went, and me and you, we'll talk after this off the line a little bit too, but try to keep it at a crisp time, and so people watch it and stuff like that. So here's my question for you as a person. I'm gonna go with this one, then I got some fun stuff we do here at the end. What you want your legacy to be, bro?
A servant. The servant. He would do anything, take the shirt off his back for somebody.
Yeah.
You won on the field, but I'm going to make sure I win off the field with these kids.
Yeah.
I've had opportunities to go to other levels, other schools, everything like that. But when God wanted for me, it'll be for me. Right now, I'm just enjoying doing what I'm doing and helping these kids.
That's what's up, man. All right. Let's do some fun stuff.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Favorite Flint athlete of all time?
Martin Cleaves.
Okay. Why Mo?
He was the point guard. I remember back when they played Muskegon. In Muskegon, they were throwing stuff on him. He let that phase him. But he was the point guard. He was the general on the field and off the field for Flint Northern, man. And he was he didn't always score a lot. Didn't see him going to Michigan State. He was always that's my guy. I love watching Mo. I love him.
All right. Best Flint athletes you ever seen that nobody talks about?
Ooh.
There's a lot of those.
A lot. Well, nobody really talk about Carlos Gill from Central back in the day.
Nah, they don't. They don't. He was hooping.
He was a hooper.
He was hooping, man.
Yeah,
we don't talk a lot about Central athletes. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I was the Northern, so I definitely don't talk about. But they, for lack of a better word, they had some dudes over there, man. You just didn't know about them.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
All right. Go to spot when you go back home.
Ooh, wait. I gotta go to Banana Boat on Corona. Get some ice cream over there. Gotta go there.
Okay.
I gotta go to Big John's. That's number one. Hold on. That's number one.
That's the top
number one.
That's the top right there.
Yes, you got to. Wherever I'm with, the family, wherever you going, anybody going back with me, we going to Big John's. That's number one. Get off that plane, that's where we going.
Okay. Let's see. All right, I did that. Best Central Michigan athlete you've ever seen. Football player with your own two eyes. We're gonna get CMU a little bit of love.
Ooh. James King or Anthony Tyus.
Okay.
They were some beasts.
Okay.
Yes.
Best teammate you've ever had.
My best friends, Red Keith and Ike Brown.
Okay. We'll take those.
Yeah.
All right. And last question. If you wasn't coaching, what would you be doing?
Ooh. Ooh, wait. Boy, that is a tough one. I would have no clue.
Sometimes you're calling, bro.
I have no clue, man.
It's funny because remember, you want the broadcast, and now you coaching. It's like you can't see yourself going and being in that mic, but
man, that's a good one.
Well, listen, serving your purpose is serving your purpose. We'll just leave it at coaching for now.
Yes, sir. Yes,
but
sir.
One day you're gonna stop coaching. So you're gonna have to figure out something you're gonna have to do with yourself.
Right. That's true. You're right.
So, but hopefully it's just a chance you get to watch your kids doing what they want to do. You just get to just retire and do that thing, man. So, so how are you? How are the kids, man? Are they into sports and all this stuff right now?
Gosh, yes. My son is 12 in 6th grade, plays travel baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Doing an excellent job at that, man. And it's crazy. I never played baseball, but that's his calling and that's what he do. Mm-hmm. So we invested in it and following him. And so he's doing great. And my daughter's 7. She plays gymnastics and softball. Okay. So those are two things that she loves. And so our thing, my wife and I, man, we want to get them the best experience they can. So we take them to LSU. We take them to Tennessee to see, my mentor up there and his wife and see those different facilities. Now also see the HBCU facilities. Yeah. So take them to those type of environments. We went to a gymnastics meet at LSU for my daughter and she was amazed, So I want them to just see that so they can visualize themselves doing that when they get older. So we make sure we invest in them.
That's what's up, man. Terrance, man, I want to thank you for jumping on. These 40 minutes went by fast.
Yes, sir.
Man, just like I said, man, we want to make sure the hometown get that love, and I'm trying to make sure my boys get their flowers, the ones that, everybody's not Mo Cleese and Morris Peterson and all those guys from Flint. There's a lot of us that are out here that, are doing some positive things with these kids and this youth and things like that. And, you deserve to have people, and if no one told you that, man, I thank you for what you do for our youth and just your community, what you've done for me personally with some things, just being there and, always being who you are, being true to you. So I appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate
it, man. All right, y'all. We appreciate y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all.